On May 5th, 2014, Michael Alig was paroled after serving 17 years in prison. He was greeted by former club kid James St. James, who was there on behalf of World of Wonder, the production company behind Party Monster and Party Monster the Shockumentary. World of Wonder was there to record footage for their planned shockumentary sequel. Also there was director Ramon Fernandez, who was filming scenes for his documentary, Glory Days, Life and Times of Michael Alig. Alig posted on social media that with all of the film crews there to record his release, he felt like one of the Kardashians. The next few weeks would be a blur for Michael Alig, who was having a whirlwind press tour that included interviews with Inside Edition, The Guardian, and The Huffington Post, just to name a few. He was also receiving a wall of press coverage covering his release and his previous scandals. Alig would later remark about the period of time in which he did several interviews a day for weeks on end was a surreal, dreamlike experience. At the end of August in 2014, Michael and Ernie Glam launched the web series The Pew, which would go on to receive over 3 million views in its 564 episodes. The Pew would become one of Alig's most successful ventures in the final years of his life. Its guests would include former club kids James St. James, Keoki, Olympia, Astro Earl, as well as club promoter Steve Lewis, photographer John Simone, and a host of other New York City artists and performers. Another notable project of Alig's from around the same time, and also a second collaboration he did with Ernie Glam, was the Project X magazine archive. This collaboration not only memorialized the 1980s and 90s New York City nightlife, but it also enshrined the club kids and the Project X magazine itself, digitalizing the paper magazines, uploading them to the internet, and preserving them for history. In the first 25 episodes of The Pew, we can see several themes beginning to emerge. The first is that Michael struggles to understand social media and the societal changes that have resulted from it. Specifically, people's, quote, 5-second attention span. This frustration of Michael's can also be seen depicted in much of his artwork, including Scream, social media poster. The second theme is his irritation with his depiction and his allegation of the fictionalizing of the events in Party Monster, and more specifically, from James St. James himself. This theme would reappear over and over and would continue through the entire run of the series for the rest of Michael's life. The third theme is that Michael is hopeful about his future endeavors, including his artwork, plans for writing novels and producing documentaries, as well as a clothing line, screenplays, and potentially a reality series. Michael would spend much of his time in the next 5 years trying to make his clothing line successful, and he would experience limited success through Alig Mart, but his ambitions to have a full-on clothing line that would be sold in shops and stores, which would come to be known as Straddleface, would go unfulfilled. However, Michael had somewhat more success early on in his art endeavors, debuting the art that he had produced while serving time at the Select Art Fair in May of 2015, and then a solo exhibition at Castle Fitzjohn's, and he was also part of Anthony Hayden Guest's multimedia exhibition in June and August of 2015, respectively. By the end of 2014, Alig was selling his art at Project X Archive and advertising it on The Pew. On February 9th of 2015, The Pew celebrated the launching of the now-defunct michaelalig.com. This site would feature a store called Alig Mart, where Michael would sell his art, posters, keychains, etc. As the media coverage began to die down, Alig stepped up his self-promotion in real time by promoting his artwork and other ventures on social media companies like Facebook and Instagram. By April 15th of 2015, Alig's problems with social media began again. His social media posts were beginning to get flagged and reported by angry social media users. Michael publicly complained about being actively censored by Facebook. having Facebook deleting full episodes of The Pew and images of his Chrome magazine cover. He described the actions as Orwellian. Just days later, Michael went on an epic tirade about the lies he said were written about him in James St. James's book, Disco Bloodbath. In The Pew's second most viewed episode, number 151, Michael Alig rips Disco Bloodbath to shreds. Alig's public complaints against St. James, Disco Bloodbath, and Party Monster were becoming more and more frequent and more pointed since he had been disinvited from a friend's Thanksgiving party in 2014, after the hosts of the party, hearing of Michael's attendance, decided to watch the movie Party Monster. In contrast, by the time 1 year had passed since his release, and 2 months before his parole ended, Alig had experienced some success. The Pew had uploaded 175 episodes. He had created the Project X archive, michaelalig.com, with the Alig Mart web store. He had written for New York Post. He had obtained a reoccurring column in the Gay Times. He was featured in the What's In music video. He had booked an art exhibit, and he had appeared in a film called Scumbag. As the end of his parole approached, Michael Alig began to plan his inevitable return to nightlife. By the time Glory Days premiered at the Manhattan Film Festival in June of 2015, Michael and director Ramon Fernandez had had a falling out. After Michael screened the movie, he was angry about what he felt were lies in the documentary and deceptive recording practices that were used. Alig viewed this as yet another betrayal and was notably absent from the film's premiere. On June 27th of 2016, Michael had his second solo art exhibit. On August 16th of the same year, Glory Days was opened for wider theatrical release. The Pew released 13 episodes in January of that year, and then Alig was missing from the series, which only had a total of 5 uploads until Alig's return on December 12th of 2016, almost a year later in episode 361. Ernie Glam would later remark that it was about this time that he first began to distance himself from Michael socially, as Michael's old self-destructive habits began to slowly re-emerge. There were only 27 episodes produced in 2016, and during Alig's hiatus, Alig's personal life was becoming more chaotic. On November 11th, Page 6 reported that police were called to Alig's apartment over a domestic complaint, and that Michael was attacked and bitten by his then-boyfriend. When reached for comment by Page 6, Alig said, quote, "Love is a battlefield." On December 6th of that year, NewYorkEater.com released an article titled, "Michael Alig's Return to Nightlife is Not Going Well." Alig had hosted a party to end his parole at the Rumpus Room. The Rumpus Room had hired Alig as a consultant. Both Michael and the Rumpus Room faced a strong backlash and threats, labeling Alig's release from parole party as disgusting and tacky. This would not be the last time Alig and his events would be the subject of protests. In Pew number 366, that aired on December 15th, 2016, Alig discusses his recent arrest in Texas for trespassing in an airport. Alig would be arrested again only 2 months later on February 2nd of 2017 for trespassing and possession in Joyce Kilmer Park around 1:30 a.m. On January 27th of 2017, Page 6 again reported on Michael Alig, this time that Alig's longtime supporter and recurring Pew guest, Steve Lewis, had parted ways with Alig after former club kid and DJ Keoki was arrested. Quote, "This is the last straw. Michael was planning on moving in with him." Alig responded by blocking Lewis on all social media, saying that he was tired of Lewis's nagging. At the end of March, media began reporting that Alig's club promoter comeback was crashing. On January 23rd of 2017, Alig reunited with St. James and Keoki to film more scenes for the sequel to the Party Monster shockumentary. It was around this time that Alig would first learn that the shockumentary sequel wouldn't be released until after his passing. After the struggles of the previous few months, Alig took steps to get his life back together and to get back on the wagon. After reaching out to Ernie Glam, they both decided to take the Pew out of hiatus and to relaunch the series. Alig was able to book another art exhibit on August 11th of that year in Los Angeles. On episode number 401 of The Pew, on May 31st, 2017, Alig lists the things that he has accomplished in the last 3 years since his release. He stated that there were still 2 things that he wanted to accomplish that as of yet he was still unable to. One was having at least one of his books published, and the other was materializing his clothing line, Scrottleface, which he said was being tied up in quasi-legal issues. In July, Michael Alig moved to Paterson, New Jersey, to the Art Factory to become its resident artist. Alig would draw more controversy and another protest over his hosting of a Los Angeles party on October 27, 2017. And this time, a petition was launched online at change.org to have him removed. The petition gained over 2,600 signatures. The venue pulled out. Alig's likenesses was removed from all the advertising material, and ultimately the event was canceled. Throughout 2017, Alig had been approaching museums and galleries, specifically in New York City, about doing a Club Kid exhibit. Michael had managed to preserve a massive amount of memorabilia from his club days in the late 1980s and early 90s. The feedback he received, however, was that none of them wanted to have anything to do with any exhibit that was in any way associated with Michael Alig. This was a blow for Alig, who had made it one of his goals to preserve the Club Kid movement for history. By the end of that year, several of those who had supported Michael after his release had turned their backs on him, some privately, some publicly, while still invoking their previous association with him to enrich themselves and to profit from their endeavors. On Christmas Day 2017, The Pew uploaded what would become their most watched video, in which they had a child celebrity as a guest. The backlash was massive and would follow Michael Alig for the rest of his days, despite repeated attempts to address it publicly. In July of 2018, Michael revealed that he was homeless after having a falling out with the owners of the Art Factory in Paterson, New Jersey, where Alig had been living and working as the resident artist. He explained how he had first started off by staying in hotels until he had run out of money. Then he ended up couch surfing with friends and acquaintances until he had overstayed his welcome. He finally ended up sleeping under a bridge. Was it a rock bottom, or do you still have further to go? Ernie Glam asked him in episode 460. I think that would be a rock bottom, was Alig's response, but time will tell. 2 months later, in September, Michael was living in a new apartment in Queens. Michael was in page 6 again in October of 2018, this time because of a leg injury. He had to miss the Halloween party that he was hosting because he cut his leg while scouting locations. His leg was severely infected, like gangrene. Alig told them, quote, "Oh my God, this infection on my leg is so scary. People are always saying my personality is infectious, but this is ridiculous." In May of 2019, Michael was for a second time facing homelessness, so he put out a call for a roommate or a financial backer on The Pew. On January 24th of 2019, Michael Alig posted on Instagram that his sample Scrottleface hoodies had finally arrived. On July 30th of the same year, episode 544 of The Pew, Michael discusses the growing interest in his art and the expansion of his customer base. He was selling them as fast as he could make them, he claimed. Thus, he could not amass enough pieces to fill a gallery show. By this time, it was again becoming clear that something was going on between Alig and Ernie Glam. Fewer and fewer episodes of The Pew were being uploaded, and those that were missing either Ernie or Michael. It was also becoming clear to many of the viewers that Michael was becoming less and less coherent. Inevitably, Pew episode 562 would be the last episode that Michael and Ernie would appear in together, called Transitions. Ernie announces in this episode his retirement from The Pew. Glam appears to be uncomfortable and Michael is clearly unhappy about the development, as Glam acknowledges the recent decline in the number of episodes. On February 6th of 2020, Michael Alig gave us his last episode of The Pew, giving viewers a tour around the last apartment in which he would ever live. Alig lays out his plans for future guest hosts and taking The Pew on the road, things that would never come to pass. On February 14th of 2020, Alig's last Instagram post celebrated his 1-year anniversary with his then partner. On Christmas morning that year, Michael Alig passed away. He was 54 years of age. He was allegedly found by Ben Silva, an ex-boyfriend. The medical examiner determined the cause as an accidental OD. Ernie Glam gave a statement saying that he knew that Michael was finally at peace, something that he had never had in life. Michael was a tormented person. Screamin' Rachel Kane started a GoFundMe to pay for Michael Alig's funeral expenses. The club kid and former New York nightlife king had been laid to rest. The man, the artist, the monster. Well, that's all I have for you today. I want to thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys again for my next upload.